Quibi.
Quibi.
Only on Quibi.
Quibi is quick bites.
Quibi is an app.
What is Quibi and why should anyone in this room or anywhere care?
Quibi is a brand new subscription-based streaming service that's mobile only.
In April 2020, a brand new streaming platform launched with a promise that sounded almost too good to be true. It was called Quibi, short for Quick Bites, and it was backed by one of Hollywood's most legendary executives. Jeffrey Katzenberg had spent decades building an empire in entertainment, from his time at Disney where he helped create classics like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, to co-founding DreamWorks Animation. Now, he was betting everything on a radical new vision for how people would watch content on their phones. With a staggering $1.75 billion raised from investors, Quibi wasn't just another streaming service. It was supposed to revolutionize mobile entertainment. But just 6 months after launch, the platform that was designed to capture quick moments between your busy life was dead. The question everyone wanted answered was simple. How does a company with that much money, that much talent, and that much Hollywood power fail so spectacularly? The concept behind Quibi seemed innovative enough. In a world where people were glued to their smartphones, Katzenberg and his co-founder, former Hewlett-Packard Enterprise CEO Meg Whitman, believed there was an untapped market for premium short-form content. Every show on Quibi would be delivered in episodes of 10 minutes or less, designed specifically for people on the go. Whether you were commuting on the subway, waiting for a coffee, or killing time between meetings, Quibi was supposed to fill those in-between moments with high-quality entertainment. The platform targeted millennials and Gen Z viewers, people who had grown up watching YouTube and were comfortable consuming content on mobile devices. Unlike the free videos flooding social media, Quibi would offer professionally produced shows with genuine star power, and Katzenberg spared no expense when it came to talent. The platform spent over $1 billion commissioning original content in its first year alone. Big names lined up to work with Quibi, including Steven Spielberg, Guillermo del Toro, Jennifer Lopez, Idris Elba, Chrissy Teigen, Kevin Hart, Reese Witherspoon, and LeBron James. The sheer celebrity firepower was staggering. Shows ranged from scripted dramas and horror anthologies to reality competitions and documentaries. There was even a court show hosted by Chrissy Teigen and a news program featuring content from major outlets. Katzenberg reportedly paid upwards of $6 million per hour of programming to attract these A-list creators. The message was clear. This wasn't going to be amateur hour on your phone. This was Hollywood-quality content shrunk down to bite-sized pieces. But Quibi's ambitions went beyond just the content itself. The platform introduced a proprietary technology called Turnstile, which allowed viewers to seamlessly switch between landscape and portrait mode while watching. Hold your phone vertically, and you'd see one version of the content. Flip it horizontally, and the framing would adjust in real time. Quibi marketed this feature as revolutionary, claiming it would transform how people experienced video on mobile devices. The company was so confident in this technology that they even filed for patents on it. However, this innovation would soon become one of their biggest headaches when a New York-based interactive video company called Eco filed a lawsuit claiming Quibi had stolen their patented technology. The legal battle dragged on throughout Quibi's brief existence, with Eco seeking at least $96 million in damages and alleging that former Snapchat employees who moved to Quibi had brought trade secrets with them. When Quibi finally launched on April 6, 2020, the timing couldn't have been worse. The world was in the grip of a global pandemic. Stay-at-home orders had been issued across the country, offices were closed, and the daily commutes and on-the-go moments that Quibi was designed for had essentially vanished overnight. People weren't looking for quick bites of content to watch on their phones during a subway ride. They were stuck at home, binge-watching full seasons of television on their big screens. The entire premise of Quibi, content designed exclusively for mobile viewing during brief windows of downtime, suddenly seemed completely out of touch with reality. The initial numbers looked promising enough. Quibi saw 1.7 million downloads in its first week, and the app briefly ranked number 3 in the App Store. The company offered a 90-day free trial to encourage signups, banking on the idea that users would fall in love with the content and convert to paid subscribers once the trial ended. There were two subscription options, $4.99 per month with ads, or $7.99 for an ad-free experience. But the honeymoon period didn't last long. Within a single week, Quibi had fallen out of the top 50 most downloaded free iPhone apps. By early May, it had plummeted to number 125, sitting behind apps like Duolingo and a game called Knock 'em All. Of the roughly 3.5 million people who had downloaded the app, only 1.3 million were actually active users. Katzenberg's initial response to these disappointing numbers was to blame the pandemic. In interviews, he attributed everything that had gone wrong to the coronavirus. He argued that consumption of video content on phones was through the roof, and that people had more in-between moments than ever. They were just different. But this explanation rang hollow. The reality was that free short-form content was everywhere. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat were exploding in popularity during lockdown, offering endless entertainment without asking users to pay a monthly subscription fee. Why would someone pay for 10-minute episodes when they could scroll through an infinite feed of engaging videos for free? The content itself became another major problem. Despite the celebrity names attached to various shows, Quibi failed to produce a single breakout hit. There was no must-watch series that drove conversations on social media or generated genuine buzz. The platform earned 10 Emmy nominations and even won 2 Creative Arts Emmys for a series called #FreeRaySean, but critical acclaim didn't translate into subscriber growth. Many observers noted that the quality of the content felt like studio B-sides and offcuts, projects that had been rejected for traditional platforms. Even with all the money Quibi had spent, they couldn't overcome a fundamental truth. Great content creates its own demand, and mediocre content doesn't, no matter how famous the faces attached to it. Quibi also made several critical strategic mistakes that compounded their problems. The platform initially launched as mobile-only, with no ability to cast content to televisions. This decision seemed baffling, especially during a pandemic when everyone was homebound. It took until October, just 2 days before Quibi announced it was shutting down, for native apps on Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Android TV to finally arrive. By then, it was far too late. Another major oversight was the inability to share content on social media platforms. In an era where virality and social sharing drive discovery and engagement, Quibi's content existed in a closed ecosystem. Users couldn't screenshot moments, share clips with friends, or create the kind of organic buzz that makes shows culturally relevant. The business model itself seemed fundamentally flawed. Asking people to pay for short-form content when the internet was already saturated with free alternatives was always going to be an uphill battle. Quibi needed to attract 7 million paying subscribers in its first year to meet projections, but by third quarter of 2020, they had only reached 710,000 subscriber households. That represented a drop of 300,000 from the previous quarter. The numbers were moving in the wrong direction. By summer, Quibi was desperately trying to course correct. They introduced a free ad-supported version in Australia and New Zealand, reduced the price of the ad-free tier, and experimented with different packaging models. They changed the marketing. They tweaked the app repeatedly. Nothing worked. By September, reports emerged that Quibi was exploring potential buyers, or considering going public through a shell corporation. The company had roughly $200 million left in the bank, but it was clear the writing was on the wall. On October 21st, just 6 months and 15 days after launch, Quibi officially announced it would shut down. In a statement, Katzenberg admitted that the standalone business model was no longer viable. He and Whitman told investors and employees that they had considered and exhausted every option available. They apologized for disappointing everyone and acknowledged their failure. The company had about 200 employees, all of whom would soon be out of work, and dozens of original programs were left in limbo. In January 2021, streaming device company Roku acquired the global distribution rights to more than 75 Quibi shows for less than $100 million. Think about that number for a moment. Quibi had raised $1.75 billion and spent over $1 billion on content alone. Now, The entire library was being sold for a fraction of that investment. The shows were rebranded as Roku Originals and made available for free on the Roku channel, which was exactly the kind of big-screen, ad-supported viewing experience that Quibi had refused to embrace when it mattered. Meanwhile, the turnstile technology that Quibi had touted as revolutionary was eventually transferred to Echo as part of a legal settlement reached in September 2001. Looking back, the failure of Quibi offers several lessons about the dangers of ego-driven leadership and misreading the market. Katzenberg and Whitman had impressive resumes, but success in traditional Hollywood and corporate tech didn't automatically translate to understanding what streaming audiences actually wanted. They built a platform based on their assumptions about how people should consume content, rather than listening to what people were actually doing. Industry insiders had warned Katzenberg before launch that the idea wouldn't work, but his decades of success had given him a bottomless well of need to win, as he described it himself. That confidence became arrogance. When early signs pointed to trouble rather than pivoting quickly, Quibi doubled down on its original vision. The pandemic certainly didn't help, but it wasn't the only reason Quibi failed. Other businesses faced the same unprecedented challenges and found ways to adapt. Quibi's fundamental problem was that it was solving a problem that didn't exist. People didn't need another subscription service for short videos when they already had endless free options. They didn't want content locked to their phones when they were spending more time at home. And they didn't see enough value in the shows themselves to justify the cost. Katzenberg himself would later reflect on the failure, saying he was humbled by it, but proud of what they tried. He called it a moonshot, an attempt to create the next generation of storytelling. In the end, though, Quibi serves as a cautionary tale about what happens when even the most experienced executives become disconnected from their audience and refuse to acknowledge when their vision doesn't match reality.